I'm gonna lean into the mic here for a minute and look right into the camera and say that there are people right now who are watching who think that this is a couple of nerds ranting about Star Wars, but
This is about writing.
we are talking about storytelling. This is
Yeah.
fundamental
Yep.
stuff.
I'm Neil Christensen, author of Dark White and Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, and you're listening to the Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey audiobook podcast. On this show, every episode, I'll read you one chapter of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, and then we'll be joined by a guest, author, editor, reader, pundit, to discuss the chapter, its merits, and its failures. These will be frank conversations focusing on writing craft. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. Chapter 6. Once I'm out of the city's demilitarized zone, I start looking for somewhere to get new clothes. I'm still wearing my digs from the night before. They're wrinkled and they smell like a house fire. I need something clean and a little formal because my next stop is the restaurant to see Mika. I find a thrift shop buried inside the first neighborhood I pass through. I'm able to put together some dark blue jeans with a black collared shirt. A herringbone tweed jacket with black suede patches on the elbows is also a good find. I pay the girl at the counter in cash and change in the store's dressing rooms. On my way out, I buy a used brown leather satchel and stuff the dirty clothes inside. Moving back towards the highway, I find a gun shop. I need bullets, so I stop inside and purchase a blue and white box of 45 rounds and a shoulder holster that'll fit the gun currently tucked in my waistband. Outside, I put the holster under my jacket, load the pistol, and stuff the rest of the ammo in the briefcase. 45 minutes later, I'm stepping out of the back of a black Lincoln Town car in front of Mika Scotty Sushi. I smile. She doesn't cook her fish, just her employees. I walk in and make eye contact with the hostess. She smiles, unalarmed to see me, and I stroll past her into the part of the dining room furthest from Mika's office. I saunter up to the empty bar and find a seat. "Morning, partner," the bartender says casually as she empties a rack of glassware into the shelves behind the bar. "Too early for a drink?" I ask. "No such thing, my friend." I smile. "Great," I sigh. "Gin and tonic, please. Double pour, Seagram's with 2 lime wedges." "A man who knows what he wants," she answers. "I'm getting there." "I'm Sarah." "Nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm Malcolm." "Yes, you are," she says. She looks over for a moment, past the entrance, then back towards her work. I resist the urge to glance over and see what she's looking at. My drink is placed in front of me, just as a looming presence appears at the stool to my left. "On the house," Sarah says, and disappears through a set of saloon doors to the back room. I feel a heavy hand on my shoulder, and the deep, gravelly voice of a teddy bear with teeth says my name. I don't look up, but I sip my drink and say, "Don." The hand on my shoulder gives an unsubtle squeeze. "What are you doing here, Mal?" I take another sip, swallow, and give a refreshed sigh. "I'm having a drink. Can I get you one?" "Malcolm." "Oh, did you mean what am I doing here, like, on this plane of existence? Like, what am I doing alive after you and your boss went through all that trouble to make me, well, not?" Don uses the hand on my shoulder to turn me 90 degrees on my stool so I'm facing him. I reach for my drink, but he grabs it first and upends it on the bar. The hand on my shoulder gets a little tighter, and I give an involuntary groan. "You shouldn't be here." "Well, I need to see Mika." "You know that isn't going to happen," he says with a slight tinge of sympathy in his voice. "Actually," I say, "I think I'm going to see her whether I want to or not." He frowns at me. A cheerful but assertive voice breezes through the empty room. It's okay, Don. I've got this. We both look sideways and see Mika in a delicate cream-colored sundress cut well above the knees, pattering barefoot through the restaurant towards us. Don looks at her with eyes that ask if she's sure about that. She waves him off casually. He glares at me and releases my shoulder before sulking away to the same back room that the bartender disappeared into. Mika steps up to the bar and smiles, a bright, sunny smile that betrays no surprise or displeasure. She hops up on the stool next to me and crosses her legs, leaning casually with one elbow on the bar. How's the drink? She says, with the friendly tone of a proprietor chatting with a customer. Free always tastes good, I say. She just stares at me with the same charming smile. It was just well gin, I say. Fine for what it is. You could have ordered better. I didn't know that I wasn't paying for it when I ordered. I'm on a fixed income at the moment. Her expression doesn't change. What are you doing here, Mal? I sigh. Well, I thought maybe we should have a little chat. I didn't think we had anything left to say to each other. You know, I didn't either. But then I got homeless and thought maybe there were still some things to cover. Finally, she looks serious. What do you suppose that has to do with me? Well, that's what I was hoping to find out. She sits up straight and crosses her legs the other way. Mal, you shouldn't be here. What's going on, Mika? Why don't I have a place to live? And what's the deal with the Phillips case? The guy didn't do anything. He was the primary witness, for Christ's sake. Since when do we client witnesses? When did we stop being the good guys? Mika's face goes pale in earnest. Mal, you need to go. You need to leave, go home, and never, ever come back here. I gave you your out. I did my level best for you. But we're done now. There's nothing else I can do for you. Go home. Go now. Jesus, Mika, I shout. You aren't listening. I don't have a fucking home. You fucking burnt it down. What the hell happened? I knew we weren't good, but at least I thought we were on the good side. Or was it all a lie? Were we ever trying to do right? Mika is calm, even-tempered, but stern and resolute. Malcolm, there is no we. There is just you, and this is me telling you to get out of this restaurant now and go far away and never come back. We stare at each other for a long moment. Then I feel that familiar hand on my shoulder. You had your shot, Mika, I say. You fucked it up, and now I know you're coming. You won't get another chance. If I were you, I'd think about letting it go. Funny, she says. That's exactly what I was going to say to you. Let it go, Mal. Just fucking let it go. I finished the rest of my chores, filing the insurance claim on our burnt-down apartment and contacting our bank and credit card companies to get replacement cards. I stopped by the BMW dealership to order a new set of keys for Elle's car. Then, before I go back to the motel, I swing by the old apartment. The place looks like it belongs on the same block as Alex Pilson's law office. It's charred and hollowed out. The ash, a grayish mud mixed with the water from the fire department's hoses. I sit there on the curb in front of the building for a good half hour, taking it all in. Part of me just wants to see how it makes me feel. What does it do to me, looking at the carnage? But mostly I'm just waiting to see if there are any cops or fire investigators lurking around. After half an hour of waiting, I decide it's clear, and I head in. I step through the empty hole that was the building's front door and make my way down the devastated hallway to the back of the building where our apartment was. The steel door is still upright, but the frame stands alone, unsupported by the adjacent walls. I walk around it and stand for a moment in what was our living dining room. The damage here seems even more intense. Any surface that remains is the platonic ideal of black. Any trace of furniture has been reduced to soft ashen mud. It smells like campfire and battery acid, and I gag a little as I walk through the ashy mud. Past the kitchen, I find the place in the wall that held my safe. The wall and all its supports are gone, and the safe is lying face down in a pile of rubbish and debris. It's heavy, but I manage to upright it and dial in the combination. The front pops open effortlessly, and I find the contents to be more or less undisturbed. I load the gun, knife, and straight razor into my new bag along with the stack of cash wrapped in saran wrap. The plastic is melted to the outside bills, but the rest are fine. There's a small stack of various kinds of identification with my photo but different names. Useless now, melted into a solid block. I don't need them, but I don't want to leave them for someone to find and question down the road. There's a ring of 6 keys that I pocket in my jeans, and a thick yellow paper envelope stuffed with color photographs that I tuck away in my jacket breast pocket. I close the safe and tip it back over. A little dust on the top from some of the surrounding debris make it appear as it had when I arrived. I backtrack out of the building the same way I came in and pull my phone out to order an Uber. As I step out onto the black tar asphalt parking lot, I hear my name. Startled, I turn around and see Detective Upton walking towards me. He's wearing the same suit he had on last night, and not looking like he's slept a wink since then either. "It's Malcolm, right? El Karma's husband?" I smile and try to force the surprise off my face. "Oh, hi. Yeah, it's Malcolm, but, Mal is fine. My friends call me Mal." He smiles at me with piercing eyes that feel to me as though they are seeing inside me without my permission. "I'm surprised to see you here, Malcolm." I rub the back of my neck with my left hand and feel my right hand involuntarily tighten around my briefcase. "Why is that?" I ask. He looks around with a sardonic expression. "Well, Malcolm, because no one else is here. The place is a dangerous disaster zone, and also a crime scene. I'd be surprised to see anyone here." "Ah, well, yeah, I suppose," I concede. "I guess I just wanted to see it in the daylight. See how bad it really is." "Oh," Upton says, sounding a little disappointed. "I guess I figured you were here to clean out your safe." My heart stops. "I'm sorry?" "The safe in your apartment. I noticed you had a pretty substantial safe in your unit. I figured you must have some seriously important stuff in there. I know I'd want to get it out right away if it were me." "Oh, that," I say without breathing. "Nah, nothing in it." Upton raises his eyebrows. "Nothing in it? Nothing at all?" "Nope. Put it there hoping there would be someday. But haven't gotten there yet." Now he looks really confused. "You built an expensive safe into the wall of an apartment you rent just in case you ever had anything to put in it? Someday?" I feel myself getting squeamish. Time to get out of this conversation. "I was supposed to come into some money this year, but it ended up not happening. What are you doing here, Detective?" He nods and smiles. "Investigating, Mr. Karma. Always investigating." "And have you found anything?" I ask. He nods. "I have," he says. There's a long silence and we stare at each other. "And?" I suggest. "I'm not really at liberty to say yet," he says. "It was good to see you, Malcolm. I'll be in touch if anything comes up." He turns and walks across the parking lot just as my black Ford Flex pulls up. I climb in the back seat and breathe for the first time in 10 minutes.
Well, you've just finished listening to Chapter 6
of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey on the Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey Audiobook podcast. And today we're talking to Justin DiPego about his reactions to chapter 6. Justin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Justin, before we get into chapter 6, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and where we can find you.
Well, I am also an author. For everyone out there, I'll tell you, Neil and I are mutuals on on TikTok. Getting my platforms mixed up. And on TikTok, where we both post quite a bit, and I've been breaking down every entry of Dracula since May. That's a lot of fun on Dracula Daily.
I've
A little
been I've been deeply enjoying that.
that's I love doing that,
Yeah.
and I that's one of my favorite novels. And but I've never broken it down with this kind of I've even written an introduction for an edition of the book and didn't do this much research
I'll tell you,
to write that.
it reminds me so much. I do it used to be on TikTok. It started on TikTok. Now it's over on the other well, this isn't TikTok, so it's on YouTube now. And I am doing kind of the same thing with the book House of Leaves, the horror novel House of Leaves,
Yeah.
where I'm doing a series called I'm Reading House of Leaves So You Don't Have to, because someone recommended House of Leaves to me like 15 years ago, and I bought it and I started reading it, and I was like, oh my God, this is impossible. And so it sat around for like 10 years with me, like starting it every once in a while and then giving up. And I said, you know what? I've got to do like a video series on this to force me to get through it.
Yeah.
Um, which is not necessary for Dracula. Dracula is an amazing book, and it's not a very difficult read, but it is deeply interesting. Um,
There's so many ways, different ways to break it down. Like I've done, I think 90 entries now, and someone might be fooled into thinking that I'm an expert or that I have like the take, but there is no one take,
of course
and
not.
and that's one of the things that's so great about that book.
Yeah, no, it is. That's it. It's one of the things that makes every adaptation of it outside of the original novel so interesting is the things that they choose to hold on to and the things that they choose to discard or change.
Yeah.
Um, because those are all choices based on just the really spectacular flexibility of the original source material.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then the people involved behind the scenes, Bram Stoker himself and his wife, and
Well, and he
uh,
was a
Oscar
he was,
Wilde, and I mean, all the main characters are that you think of from that era are in the story behind the story.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, I deeply encourage you to read the original Dracula.
Highly
And
recommend.
yeah, it is. And just like if you haven't read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, like
Yeah.
that book is like it's like 50 pages or something like I
No, no,
mean,
no,
not
no,
quite,
wait.
but
No,
but
no.
it's
Frankenstein is not
Frankenstein is small though. It is
Frankenstein is you're right. I mean,
I mean, it's a tiny book.
Dracula is like this
Dracula,
thick.
no, no,
Yeah,
Dracula's big, but
but
Frankenstein,
Frankenstein is a longer read.
yeah, well, yes, but it's like it's there.
Yeah,
There's like nothing to it. Like, pick it up,
yeah,
do it. All those
yeah.
original horror and sci-fi horror novels, like the you when you read those novels for the first time, it hits you like a ton of bricks how much impact they have had on literary conventions, literacy, television, movies, everything. How much,
Just popular culture
yeah,
in general.
how much influence
A
they have
couple of
had,
years ago,
yeah, in general.
I did a couple of years ago, I did new editions of I wrote the introductions for new editions of Frankenstein, Dracula, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Ooh, I'd love to
And
talk to you about that one sometime.
well, we could do a whole episode
Yeah.
about that. Just the fact that everything you know about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, everything you think you know about it is based
Unless
on the
you've read it.
story. Yeah, yeah. Well, even yeah, but even now, like 150 years later or something, we all think that it's about something, and it's actually not about that because what it is a murder mystery.
Yeah, and we should have that
And
conversation sometime because
absolutely,
I would
yeah.
love to talk
No,
about that in
I could,
depth because it is fascinating. Dr.
yeah,
Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is one of the
yeah,
most misunderstood pieces of literature that everybody thinks that they know about. And even if you read it in like
yeah,
10th
absolutely.
grade, thinking like, in 10th grade English, thinking like,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you don't get it.
Right.
Um,
Okay. So speaking of literature,
yes.
I want to, I just, before we get started, I want to mention my book.
Oh, which I have bought
uh,
and is sitting eagerly waiting for me to finish House of Leaves so that I can start reading
awesome. Awesome.
it.
Awesome. Well, my book is called Knuckle Sandwich, and it is an LA Gothic neo noir hard boiled punk rock private eye story. So I wanted to take all of my books so far. This is my third novel, have that punk rock ethos, but I wanted to put that ethos in the forefront instead of it having be in the background because I am the author and those things
Mhm.
leak in, right? I wanted to tell a punk rock story.
Yeah.
And so this was my opportunity to do that. And I ended up creating a hard-boiled detective character that I definitely want to have more and more books in the
I
series.
am so excited to read it. It is like literally my Kindle is sitting there next to my bed, just going, Neil, fucking finish House of Leaves so that you can read because I mean I have a TBR 10 books deep or
Right.
more. And when I saw your videos about this and I started reading about it and looking at it, I was like, forget it. This is like at the top. It skipped all
Oh,
and it is the next book because you know what? There aren't a whole lot of noir stories being written these days. And in fact, I am told frequently by people when I'm marketing my books that uh, one of the things I'm doing that's hindering sales is by saying it's noir because
yes.
people hear noir and they're like, "Oh, no, I don't want to like that's old school or that's old fashioned or like I don't," and they don't realize that like so much of everything that they watch and that they ingest is so deeply influenced by the noir like aesthetic and the noir structure.
Yeah.
Literally every 80s TV show, every
Oh,
80s
yeah.
TV show you watched is a noir. Simon and Simon, The A Team, Knight Rider, uh, you know,
Yeah.
all of them.
Those
Um,
outsider heroes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Well,
then
I think you and I are playing in the same little pool.
yeah,
And one thing, I mean, I think you're right about the that it like it narrows your focus of audience, right? If
mhm,
people are being excluded because they hear noir. And I've reached a point where, and I don't know if you maybe do or don't feel the same way. Well, obviously you don't, you obviously you do feel the same way. I don't care.
yeah.
You know,
I'm
I
over it. I
yeah, I mean it's like this is where I want to this is
yeah.
where I live and this is what I want to share. I mean this is and it's a great opportunity. It's a great in similar to science fiction. It's a great opportunity to tell stories that observe the world that we live in
Yeah.
as an outsider. And and obviously, science fiction like Star Trek does that, but also, like Foundation, which is
Oh,
happening
I
right now on
Asimov
TV,
is my hero. Yeah.
right? I mean, so it's like it's all about we should have another episode about Foundation.
We should
Um,
have another episode about Asimov, just in
yeah,
general. Like, oh my God.
but it in the same way that that is a commentary. It's a big giant space epic space
Yeah.
opera,
Yeah.
uh,
Foundation's amazing.
but it's also this commentary on the human
Hmm.
condition,
Which
which I
is
think
something that the
noir.
adaptations like really miss. Like
Yeah,
I watched the HBO adaptation and it's beautiful and everything, but
yeah,
it absolutely misses the entire ethos of the novel, like and the series of novels. Like
yeah,
it is so superficial in terms of just like we're going to tell the top layer story with and make it pretty as
yeah.
opposed to everything that it is saying about us.
Yeah, and it's a missed opportunity
Yep.
because it's not a movie, right? It's
Yep.
this long form unfolding of it over many seasons. So they had the opportunity to dig,
Yep.
but then, you and I would be the ones watching it,
Yep.
and that would be it.
Yeah. Of course. Of course. All right. Well, we're gonna put links to all of your information, including your novel, in the show notes for people to be able to go and find. I highly recommend they pick it up and read it. But moving on to the subject at hand, we're
Yes.
talking about Chapter 6 of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. Um, I'm gonna let you talk for as long as you need to talk. And then I can answer questions or I can
Hmm.
give feedback, anything that you're looking for, but we're looking for, just really like honest feedback, the good and the bad. This
Yeah.
is writers group.
Good. Cool. All right. Well, first of all, just a little, I did not finish the book because I on purpose
Yeah,
didn't
no,
want to
most
move
people aren't.
beyond.
Yep,
Okay,
they read up until their chapter.
but I will because
Yep.
and on it, I've never read you before. and
Hmm.
and so I was like, okay, let's see what we're getting into. I'm totally down for reading the first 6 chapters. And I'm also totally down now that I have done that for reading the rest. So I'm I'm into it. But I didn't want to read the whole thing before we had this conversation.
Yep.
Because I didn't want to, not just that I would let spoilers out, but I didn't want anything that's coming to influence what I'm going to say.
That's what everybody has said, and that's kind of what I expected. So
Good, good.
we're really good.
um okay, so before I get into chapter 6,
Hmm.
just as a generality,
Yeah.
I want to say that I always have a bit of a problem with uh
I'm gonna
first
say, oh,
person
wait,
present.
before you say it, I'm gonna say it. First person present tense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I know it's me
It's not
because
you.
no,
It's a
no, it
lot of
is.
people.
Here's why though. Here's why I know that it's me. Because I know there's a lot of discourse like in book talk about different tenses and
Hmm.
people don't like them and stuff like that. For me, it's very specific to first person present tense.
Hmm.
It's not that I don't like the way that it reads. It's not the way that it, but what happens is that me as a as a diligent and um, lifelong consumer of stories. And I'm the same way about movies, peeking
Hmm.
behind the curtain,
Hmm.
seeing the machine behind the story. Every time I read something first person present tense, I immediately think that the protagonist, that the narrator is going to die.
That is so interesting.
And it has nothing to do with the story per se or the quality of the writing. It's not that I don't enjoy the reading experience of first person present tense, but it's the only way. It's not the only way, but it's an effective way to tell a first person story in which the
I
first person narrator dies.
That's so interesting. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna dip off camera and I'll be right back in like 2 seconds. Okay, so I almost always write in first person. Um, yeah, okay, that answered my question. I almost always write in first person these days. I didn't always, but I've kind of found that to be my voice. And my first novel, Dark White,
Uh-huh.
it's written primarily in first person past tense. And then when I jump to another person's point of view, it'll be written in third person past tense. And so that's how I did that. Malcolm Karma is obviously at this point first person present tense. The the work in progress that I'm working on right now is first person present tense. And the other work in progress I have that'll be my next one after the one I'm working on now is first person present tense. And then the one after that is the
Wow.
same thing. Okay, so I've got a whole bunch of things and I'm gonna spoil for you and just say,
This is longer than your TBR.
yeah. Uh and I'm just gonna tell you that the main character doesn't die in any of them
Ah,
until the one after now. Like I do have one where, but at least in that case, in that one, which is called coercive control, um, the main character, the protagonist, the first person narrator, they die in the first chapter.
oh wow. Okay.
And then we jump back. And so we know that they die.
Uh-huh.
So it is a first person present tense with the narrator dying, but I didn't, but that's like I haven't even written that yet.
Yeah.
But it's super interesting that you say that because that was one of the things I loved about doing that when I started like outlining that and kind of writing a few chapters and stuff
Mm.
was this idea of having the first person present tense with start with the death.
Yeah.
Like
That's interesting.
the beginning, the very first chapter of the book, the very first thing you read is first person present tense and then they die.
Yeah.
And then it jumps back. So uh super interesting feedback on that, but I guarantee you they don't die.
Hmm. Okay. Fair enough. Uh, and like so that's why it's a tricky note
Hmm.
to give because that it, like some people just maybe they don't like
Hmm.
first person or they don't like third person or whatever their thing is. And that's not it's not that I don't like it, right? It's not that the reading experience is hurt for me on that level. It's just that sort of behind the curtain, I think, it's the same way like I've seen and I've worked on movies and TV shows and stuff like that. I've been on set a lot and stuff. So it's like whenever I'm watching a movie, uh, I can so often just see the production that's happening
Yep.
around it, like what's happening on the sides of the frame, and it hurts my movie watching experience, but it's not the fault of the movie,
No.
you know?
And sometime you and I should have a conversation off of the podcast because it sounds like you and I work in the same industry as well.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so I 100% understand what you're saying. And I've had spouses stop watching television and movies with me because they say I ruin it.
Yeah, every now and then I'll turn to my wife and I'll say like, "Is it okay if I do?
Yeah.
I'm about
I'm
to
gonna tell you something
I'm
now.
about, do you want me to wait till it's
Yeah.
done? Because I have a thing."
I stopped going to live theater for like 15 years because
Yeah,
I all I could do was sit in the audience and go, "Oh, how'd they do that? Oh, where'd they and just tear it apart."
that's so funny. My brother and his wife, they live out of town, and in their little town where they live, there's a small local theater that performs outdoors. And but and so I was walking down the street next to where a show was being performed, and I heard the very distinctive sound of the door on a set being closed.
Yep.
And it was like this sense memory. I just
Yeah.
like immediately, And I know you know what I'm talking, and it was just like, it's one of those things where like if I was in the audience, it would have taken me out of the show,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
But it's again, it's like it's no fault of the show.
No, I
You
mean,
know,
there's, it's just when you work in an industry, like you just, like all of that stuff, you stop seeing it. The suspension of disbelief disappears, and
yeah,
all you see is how it's done.
yeah,
And it's not, no one else in the audience is having that, but you've done it so many times that you just, you don't see the illusion, you only see the reality.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so
Okay,
getting
okay.
past the point of
Getting
view on
past that, I have one other note for chapter one.
it. Mm-hmm.
You're describing Malcolm uh, gearing up,
Mm-hmm.
and you say that he pockets a small 4-inch switchblade.
Mm-hmm.
That is a 3.5-inch switchblade.
Mm-hmm.
It is not small.
Okay, well, fair enough. Fair enough. Um, I suppose that that is a reasonable critique. I do not think it is a critique that most readers would connect with.
This is a
Um,
similar note.
yeah, yes. Um, I had I had a real switchblade, you know, a double-edged switchblade, like the actual thing, like grease lightning style switchblade. Uh, and I just like, I never, yeah, like that. I never measured it. So I just like in my head, like tried to picture like, okay, how big was that? Oh, it feels like it was like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 inches. So this would be small. So like four. Like I didn't like that. That was where my research like
Yeah.
fell short. Where I was like, I have experience with this, and so I don't need to research it. But maybe I did.
It's not, I mean, it's not it's obviously it's not a huge note.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Hmm.
Let's get into chapter 6. I have a new title for you for chapter 6.
Did I title my chapters? I don't think I did.
You did, you titled it chapter 6.
Okay.
And my new title for chapter 6, I'm not sure you're going to like it. Chapter 1.
Oh, that's super fucking interesting. Um, I know, like, look, I have said on this show before that I am a big fan of in media res and like just hopping in the middle of action.
Yeah.
Um, but that's a little too in media res. Like we have lost, and I'll tell you why, because the stuff that happens in chapter one is important to every like we're already, by chapter six we already know that the stuff that happened in chapter one is important in chapter like three and four, and why he makes decisions, and like, so
Exactly.
tell me why chapter
Exactly.
six is chapter
Exactly. What
one.
you're saying to me right now is exactly why. Now, chapters 1 through 5, I'm not saying I didn't like them. I'm
Hmm.
not saying they're not well written, or like I didn't have any as I was reading chapters 1 through 5, I was not going like, oh, oh, backstory, blah, 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 right? That was not the experience that I was having. But when I read chapter 6, and he's just talking about his clothes smelling like a fire, and he's got to get new clothes, and his blood is soaking through his shirt, and he's got to go see, like, obviously there are certain things that would need to be, you'd need to r- take the description of the restaurant from, I think, what, chapter 3, and put it into chapter 6
Hmm.
in order for this to work. But the things that it's all it what to me, what that would do is it would make the reader pick up the pieces of Malcolm's life the same way that Malcolm is picking up the pieces of his life.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. That's interesting.
And then,
That
like,
is
when
the
he's
deepest, most like interesting comment I've had so far. We're in chapter six, and this is the most interesting feedback I've had yet. Like that is super interesting. I don't know that I agree with you, but I certainly entertain it as a really interesting idea.
I challenge you to read chapter 6. This is impossible. Because I challenge you to read chapter 6 with that in your head, and just like have this detective show up and have him say that he's dressed in the same clothes as he was in last night.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's that the storytelling of a moment like that is again, I'm not delivering the note. I don't like chapters 1 through 5. I don't want that to.
No, I got that. Yeah, for
But
sure.
another thing that would happen if chapter 6 was chapter 1 is you would discover, I assume, I haven't read beyond chapter 6, but you would discover that his wife is still alive.
Right.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe in chapter 7 he goes back to that motel and she's not. So I don't know. But as it reads, it seems like he's lost everything. And then to have her show up would be like, oh, okay, okay. I thought I knew what was going on, but
So that's part of the reason why I'm like it bristles me a little bit because there's so much that happens before this that like I think is so important to character development and just audience like being pulled along. And one of those things is, and I talked about this with Ben, my guest on chapter 1, where I was like, he was like, "Oh yeah, this and you know that," and I was like, "Okay, stop. I want to know your opinion on the last two paragraphs of chapter 1
mm,
because the the thing that happens in chapter 1 that is supposed to be shocking is when he gets home after the whole assassination and everything,
yeah,
and he climbs into bed. And one of the last things that is said is that his wife rolls over and wraps herself around him as he falls asleep. That the revelation that he's married and lives in a house with a wife and like and that she's there and like everything is supposed to be like, oh my God, like because everything up
right.
until that point is trying to I do try to drop hints. I foreshadow. I say in chapter 1 early on that he goes out into the kitchen and there's hot coffee waiting for him on the stove. And
Mm,
that's like just kind of like a drop in, like, oh, there's hot coffee, not in a pot like an automatic thing, but like
yeah,
on the
yeah.
stove.
That's interesting. I
Um,
did not pick up on that.
but then at the end of the chapter, the fact that he gets into his bed and his wife rolls over, because up until then, there's no mention of a wife. And
Right.
so it's supposed to be this idea that we have one of the things I like to do is subvert tropes, right? And so
Yeah,
the
yeah.
trope is the killer, right? The
Loner.
assassin that's a lone guy and kind of
Yeah.
lives in the dilapidated apartment or whatever. And so that's why I make it a explicit that he comes home and he dries himself with a soft towel and he puts on nice cotton pajamas and he
Yeah.
climbs into a bed and lays his head on a memory foam pillow.
Yeah.
These are not the things we think of when we think of a killer. And
Right.
then at the very end, his wife rolls over and wraps herself around him. And it's like, oh my God, the fucker's married. Like
Yeah.
he's like, and so to take away that whole thing and just be like, oh yeah, my wife is alive. And she's like, it's like, you're taking away these moments that are for me that for me the author at least, and I don't
Yeah.
know that they are for the reader, right? But for me the author at least were so like critical and important to like the development and these moments for the character is just like it's like oh I don't know, like if you were my editor and you came to me with this I'd be like I'd be fighting you.
If I was your editor, I would definitely come to you with this and we
Yeah.
would be having this fight. But because what I would now say is, can you not achieve the the same thing that you described that's happening in chapter 1 in chapter 7, or whatever appropriate chapter it would be when he catches up with her
Hmm.
at that motel or wherever it's going to happen. Um, that's interesting because I, I, I totally hear what you're saying about chapter 1. And also, I will say that apart from your editor, no one will ever read chapter 6 as closely as I did.
Right, for
You
sure.
know?
Of
um,
course, because it was your
um,
job to read chapter 6,
right.
right? Like,
But what you're saying about chapter 1 is very interesting, and I still think that you could achieve that sort of aha twist, if you will, from the audience, um, if chapter 6 is chapter 1. But I still
well,
I take your point.
for sure. And I will say that every editor I've ever talked to, as well as every editor that gives advice on any platform, says to every author, you're starting your story too early and you're ending your story too late. Like
Mhm.
you need uh to jump forward before. And I hear that, and man, it you know, as it does with, I'm sure, a million authors, like that kind of advice just bristles, and it's like, yeah, but it's so important. But also, like, if people knew how much we changed from the first draft to where it is,
Yeah.
and to be like it's I'm not an indie author that just like writes my first draft and then does spell check and publishes. Like
No, yeah, God no.
the final draft is dozens of edits and cuts and additions, and we've talked about that previously on the show, like
Yeah.
where the story started before versus where it starts now. Um, there are so many things that have changed, and certainly for the better. And I'm not saying that what you're suggesting wouldn't change it for the better. I'm just like, in this moment, like, maybe tomorrow I'll feel like what you're saying is true, but
Yeah.
but right now I'm like, oh, fuck you.
Well,
Yeah,
as your editor,
yeah,
I expected you to say
yeah.
that.
All
um,
right. So beyond changing chapter 6 to chapter 1, what do we got?
well, I really like your characters and your banter. Oh, I'm gonna. Speaking of seeing behind the curtain, where are my glasses?
Oh, it's always behind the curtain for me because I cannot see anything without them.
um, the uh, the the world building that's happening. I think a lot of people, a lot of readers don't realize there. Is that better? That's better. A lot of readers don't realize um, that you do world building, even if what you're writing takes place in the here and now real
Yes, of
world.
course you do. Yes.
And I think that that's not. I don't hear that talked about. I
It
hear it
needs to be
talked about
talked about more.
in
Yeah.
sci-fi and fantasy settings.
Yeah.
People talk about world building all the time, but in the genres that you and I are writing in, it's maybe not as um, intensive, but it is as important.
Yeah.
And the world building here is really good. And I was getting a real sense for, um, in fact, that's part of why I I zeroed in on my original note, my big note, my
Hmm.
grand note, is because the world building here is just reading chapter 6 is I'm getting a real sense um for Malcolm's world, his life and his place in it, in this
Hmm.
shadowy organization, and these people who are um never to be trusted,
Yeah.
and so I really enjoyed that, um and getting that sense of world here,
Hmm.
and I don't know. I think you said something about, I think you said the suburbs,
Yeah.
but I
In-
don't think you said like the southern suburbs or something.
no,
Like, I
I
don't
did
think you,
not.
yeah, you didn't, and I don't know if you ever will like set this in Chicago,
It
per se. I mean, like, are you ever gonna say Chicago?
I don't know if you as an author have this experience, but by the time I've written a book, edited a book, um, done all the things, published it, put it out, like, and then come back to it like later, if you gave me a ninth grade English exam on my
About your
novel,
own
I
book?
would I would fail.
Yeah.
Like I don't remember.
Well, but
I know in Dark White I do explicitly call it Chicago. I
yeah.
don't know if I do in Malcolm Karma or Cold Turkey or not. I would assume I do at some point,
But
but
if you do, it's not, it's obviously your answer is, obviously to me, your answer is that it's not critical.
it's not. It's
So,
not.
because
Yeah.
I mean, I was born in Chicago and I have family there, so I know my way around a tiny bit, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, I moved to LA when I was too young to remember Chicago as someone who lived there.
But when I
But
talk about the burnt out like housing units on the north side, you know what I'm talking
I
about.
know what you're talking about, and also when you talked about the suburbs,
Yeah.
I knew what you're talking about. I mean, that's you know, and so it's like I'm picturing when you're talking about those neighborhoods,
Hmm.
I know I'm not picturing generic
No. Yeah.
urban settings.
Hmm.
Like in my writing is very centralized to Los Angeles,
Hmm.
and Los Angeles is like a named character in the stories.
Yeah.
Um, and from you, I'm getting a more, um, I'm getting a more, a, I don't know how old you are, but
I'm
I'm
going to
getting,
be 48 next month
okay.
or this month when this comes out.
So Hill Street Blues,
Yeah.
they never named the city that was in.
Right.
And,
Even though it's Baltimore, right?
no, that's Homicide, Life on the Streets. Hill Street Blues was like maybe Cincinnati or maybe Detroit, or it
Hmm.
was definitely,
It was
um,
Midwest.
it was definitely
It wasn't
Midwest.
East Coast. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
And
remember. It's
they
been
never,
20 years since I watched the show.
yeah, and you were much younger than I
Yeah.
when that was happening. Um, so I think you're doing a similar thing where you're just taking this urban generalized urban setting.
Yeah.
And but my point is that even though I know out of universe, you know, that you're in Chicago, um, and so therefore, and I have a little bit of a history with Chicago, and so I was able to recognize
Mhm.
specific references that you were making. That wasn't important. Someone
No,
who
for
doesn't
sure.
know any of those things is going to be getting that, and I was really enjoying that because
Yeah.
I got a sense of those just like paper sheet flat suburbs,
Yep.
and the water feature and
Yeah.
the yeah.
In Dark White, I very explicitly make Chicago a character in the story,
Mm,
and there are plenty of references to actual streets and actual like buildings and locations and everything. And then even when it does, like in Dark White, venture eventually like outside the city and go to the suburbs, they're all like real places that are called out, and like literally like driving down Roosevelt Road and seeing the Cadillac dealership on the left hand side, and like those are things that existed.
right.
In this one, I feel like I tried to, even though I wasn't trying to hide that it was Chicago. And again, there may be references to Chicago in it later. I cannot remember.
Yeah.
But I wasn't trying to make the city a character, right?
Right.
The city was just the background.
Yeah.
Um, because it was more about like this idea. And so if you've read Dark White, because, and spoiler, but later on, like the two do get tied together a little bit. They are independent standalone books in a shared universe.
Yeah.
um and so like
I
if
love
you
that, by the
it,
way, conceptually.
yeah, if you've read Dark White, when you're reading Malcolm Karma, eventually you'll be like, oh, okay, so this takes place at the same place.
Yeah.
um uh and I have another one that's the one I'm working on now takes place in like the south suburbs of Chicago, like Joliet area. And
Okay.
then the next book takes place in Nashville, and then the next book after that takes place back in Chicago. So it's all, but again, like in Dark White, the city is a character. In the rest of them, the city is just like the background
Yeah.
for where it's at.
And what that does, and I was getting that, and this is where that world building comes in that
Mhm.
I was enjoying, is that even though I was able to identify Chicago and the suburbs and stuff, not only was that like not important, but also I was understanding, and this is where I'm in it as a reader, and I'm outside of it as an author, editor, professional in this
Mhm.
space, right? And so as I was appreciating the not generic is the wrong word, accessibility. That's, I guess, is the word that I'm looking for. Like my stuff, when I'm writing about Los Angeles, that's part of um, introducing the reader to Los Angeles
Mhm.
and giving the reader an experience of this town that they're not going to get from media in general or from a guidebook or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but that's also a barrier to entry because
It can be, I suppose. Yeah.
and so not that like a reader might be like, oh, I don't like Los Angeles, but it's just like they're not going to immediately, unless they're from here, relate to
Yeah, but like
and
nobody's reading the Black Dahlia going, well, I can't relate to this because I haven't been to like Los Angeles. Like,
yeah,
it's, I don't think that the city actually, I mean, nobody watched Good Will Hunting and was like, well, I'm not from Boston, so this doesn't mean anything to me.
no, but
Like,
but someone might see Goodwill Hunting or The Town and go, Boston, right?
I
And
mean, no one
and
who's been to Boston would go, "Ugh, Boston, because Boston's fucking fantastic. But
nobody from New York would say what you just said, but
um, I understand what you're saying. I don't know that that's like I understand what you're saying. I think what it comes down to is like my formative years. So like I was a senior in high school in 1996 when Pulp Fiction came out.
oh,
And
okay,
I saw Pulp Fiction 6 times in the movie theater. And then I was working at Blockbuster Video when it came out on video, and I used my connections to spend $100 to buy a VHS copy of it when it came out on VHS. Because back then, guys, movies came out for rental before they came out for purchase. And so if you wanted to buy them when they first came out on video, you had to buy them at the rental company's price.
yeah,
So I like Pulp Fiction. I lived and breathed that movie. And one of the things I loved about that movie is that you have no fucking idea when it takes place,
yeah,
and you have no fucking idea where it takes place.
yeah,
And it's just a story about like bad people in a city, right?
yeah,
And
and I'm totally getting that. That's interesting that you're bringing up Pulp Fiction. I didn't make any kind of connection. It's not like this is your writing is
I don't think it's
derivative. That
derivative anymore. It's
that
definitely influenced, but it's not derivative. There was a time when I was a child and started writing that my writing was very derivative of all
ah,
sorts of different people.
right.
But you write enough and you find your voice, and then it
Yeah,
stops being derivative and
yeah.
it just starts being influenced.
But that sense of what you just described of these things happening in this this town, some city where things are gritty,
Hmm.
and I'm totally getting that
Yeah.
from you in this, and I dig that. I'm gonna when I first the first time I saw Pulp Fiction, due to a scheduling mix-up, I think it was playing in three or in two different auditoriums at the theater, and I did not realize that I walked into the wrong auditorium and I came in the middle.
And there's no way to tell.
And exactly. And so when the movie ended, I was so confused. And only later did I find out that I had missed the first half of the movie. And in
And
that
you're like,
movie,
and this movie was only 40 minutes?
of all movies for that to happen,
Yeah.
right? I mean, wow. And obviously, and then I ended up watching the whole movie that day,
Yeah.
and it all fell into place. But what a perfect movie for that to happen in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I will tell you, I remember that year going to a friend's house at Oscar time to watch the Oscars. Like there were like 8 of us, you know, from my high school sitting around watching the Oscars. We were all theater kids, so it was like important to us, you know.
Sure.
And when fucking Forrest Gump won over Pulp Fiction, I was like, fuck this. I think it was the last time I actually seriously watched the Oscars. I was
Really?
like, fuck you guys. I was like, seriously? Forrest Gump is a terrible movie. and and
Okay.
and Pulp Fiction changed cinema for 30 years. So like
So did Pulp Fiction.
that's what I'm saying.
I'm sorry. So did Forrest Gump.
No, it didn't.
Uh, oh, absolutely, it did, but it made it worse.
It,
Um,
it was like, oh, you want stupid stuff? Okay.
but see, here's the thing about Forrest Gump, and nobody agrees with me, by the way. I'm not saying I'm right, except that I'm right. That is the darkest movie. That movie is so dark.
Yeah, it's very dark.
And everybody at the time, it was like this feel-good movie and the
No, it's
feather is
it's
floating and stuff like that. It's like
humiliating and putting down a human being for his disabilities and
it
his
is a
it's making fun of
it's I disagree. It's a brutal disassembly of American society. It is a uh uh piece by piece examination and rejection of American exceptionalism. And everybody saw that movie and went, "This is the most wonderful, happy thing I've ever seen."
well, first of all, there's nothing happy about it. Like even when I saw it the first time, I was like, there's nothing happy about this. It's sad. Um,
I agree with you, but I
I
think so many people
I
were
don't
pissed
I
at it.
don't think it I actually disagree. I don't think it tries to dismantle, or at least I don't think it achieves dismantling American exceptionalism. In fact, I think it's propaganda in favor of American exceptionalism in saying that like, oh, this person, despite all their, their limitations or obstacles, is able to achieve all these things by happenstance or accident or coincidence, but they're still able to achieve them all. But the
Sure.
problem is that Forrest Gump doesn't know what it wants to be, because sometimes it tries to be hyperbole and like, oh, I'm running a race and I write my face on a t-shirt and suddenly that's how we get the smiley face emoji.
Yeah.
Really? While other times trying to be like, this is gritty realism of what it really is like. No, you gotta decide what you want to be. You can't be all of the things.
It's so wild because first of all, I I agree with everything that you just said, but I'm still right because 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 here we have Forrest Gump. On the one hand, just taking his character as you described him, it is a it is an indictment of our society that he succeeds as a businessman because that's who's in charge of the country right now.
Yes. Well, That's
And if you take another step back, Forrest Gump isn't a character at all. He's a lens that goes from the 50s, the 40s to the present day. Every famous person that he meets dies terribly. His touchstone
ah
events that he experiences are the worst things that happened in the second half of the century, of the 20th century. Vietnam and AIDS and the um, the the deterioration of the anti-war movement into self-serving terrorism. I mean, everything in that movie is terrible, and he can't see how terrible it is.
yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So I recently had a conversation with a person about the song Grease Lightning.
Okay. I played Danny Zuko in Grease in high school.
I'm sorry. It's the worst musical in history. Uh and they were like, so it was me and another guy and a third guy, and one of them was like, well, I don't understand, like, is it's about a car, right? And I was like, no, no, it's about sex. And they're like, what? And I was like, the the song is about having sex. And the guy's like, he knows I'm a writer. He goes, are you doing some like literary analysis, like, you know, diving deep and looking at metaphors and stuff? And I go, no, it's on the fucking surface, dude. The song is
Yeah.
about sex. And he goes, okay, put it on. And so we start playing the song, and he goes, you know what? I'm just kind of now noticing that I can't really understand what they're saying. And I'm like, yeah, you've listened to the song a million times and never heard anything they're saying.
Yeah.
Listen to the lyrics to the song when they're talking about like getting some tit and it's a real pussy wagon, and she's the
Yeah.
girls are gonna cream, and like it's not about the car, okay? Greased Lightning is about like lubed up, you know? And
Absolutely.
he's like,
That whole show is. I mean,
yeah,
that's
well, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
the whole show Grease is about how being a good person is bad and being bad is good. Um, and I mean, good and bad are, you know, subjectively differential in the conversation. But yeah, and that's what I think is going on here with our conversation about Forrest Gump, is this idea of like, I I think that everything you're saying can be interpreted for sure that way, but for sure, like 75% of the population that watches that movie will not get anything from that. And it's one of
Absolutely.
those things where, and I've said this on videos before, and it's one of those things that always gets me in trouble. But when I was having a, you know, I was bullied as a kid, you know, as us theater people were. Um, and when I'd come home and be upset about someone that was being awful, my dad would put his arm around my shoulder and he would say, Neil, you have to remember that 50% of the people that you encounter in the world every day have an IQ under 100. And while IQ is certainly like an arguably, you know, valid thing at this point,
Right.
the idea stands true that
Absolutely.
50% of the people you meet in the world are dumber than average. And so you just got to like accept that, you know, people are not going to be able to look at things and have a critical lens on them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why I started out like that's why I said before I said what I did about Forrest Gump that I know I'm right, but I also know that nobody agrees with me and I'm never going to convince them. And I'm okay with that. It's not
Yeah,
like I'm saying that everybody is wrong. I, I take that back.
you
The
are.
I no I the people who talk about Forrest Gump as a feel-good movie
Are
are wrong.
wrong. Yes,
Are
I agree with you
absolutely wrong.
100% on that.
They are 100%
They,
wrong.
they, they, I don't know how they can like look at it and see that. Other than it makes them feel good that they're smarter than this character,
I guess I don't
and
know.
like they're kind of like feeling bad for this like character, and they're like, "Oh, but look, he does okay. I
Yeah,
guess the
yeah.
world's okay because he's dumb
I
and he
think
does
that's I
okay."
think that's what they get out of it. I think that's the feel good
And
thing.
it's like you're awful for feeling that way. Like that is a terrible, terrible. But I hear what you're saying. I have had this conversation about the my favorite show of all time, play, movie, whatever, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf,
Oh,
um, because my personal pet theory about Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf,
I can't
and
wait. I'm
and no
literally
one
like
is
I'm like
ever,
buzzing.
no one is ever going to talk me out of this. This is me saying you can disagree with me, but you're wrong. Is that George and Martha
Mm.
are immortal gods,
Whoa.
and they are immortal gods that live on Earth, and they have been around for so long, and they are have been attached to each other for so long that the only thing they have left to let them feel anything is to hurt each other. And so that's why whenever people are like, "Oh, how long have you guys been married?" They're like, "Oh, 900 years." You know, "How long have you guys been married?" "Oh, since the beginning of time." And then at the end when he's like, when George is like, "Our son is dead." And she's like, "You can't do that." He is, you know, it's like they had a son and he just blinked him out of existence.
Yeah.
And I think that the entire thing is that there's these two young mortal people watching two gods fight it out.
The Greek mythology of what you just said is, I mean, it really, I mean, not that they, I mean, I'm not saying that you're saying that they are literally Zeus and Hera, but they totally could be. I
It's the
mean,
same idea,
it's
right?
that's brilliant. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Um,
And
and
everything in the text supports it. I have read it so many times. I have watched it so many times. Everything in the text supports my theory.
Yeah, I mean, and this could be something that they do to some young couple every
Yep.
solstice or something,
Yeah.
or whatever is appropriate for the cycles of these gods.
Yep.
That's they've been doing it for eons.
Yep.
I dig that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we're talking about here. I mean, I don't think anything, I don't anticipate anything in Malcolm Karma going that deep.
No.
But I could be wrong. There
I
could
just made a video
be
on TikTok about how like my books are not deep. Okay. They aren't about multiple things. There isn't an A, B, C, D. Although there is in Malcolm Karma, like it actually does go deeper in terms of like you dive into every character so much deeper.
Hmm,
Like, and it's a short book, really, but it really like gives you everything about every character and you understand why they're all connected.
yeah.
Um, but but it's still just one story. There aren't like multiple stories. And Dark White was the same thing. It's like it's one story. I don't have three different plot
Oh, you
lines.
don't have B stories and
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so
Because I was going to disagree with you. I mean, if you don't have like B and C stories, then cool. But when you say that it's not that deep or it's not really about anything beyond, I disagree. Because whenever you're dealing with somebody's dark night of the soul,
Hmm.
You are going deeper.
Yeah.
And to me, the classic thing is like sometimes the curtains are just blue. I
Hmm.
100% disagree with that. Like 100%. No,
You don't think
no
sometimes a cigar
qualification.
is just a cigar?
You know who said that?
Freud.
You know why?
Because he's an asshole Nazi, like,
Because
uh,
he was smoking a
yeah.
fucking cigar and
Yeah.
he didn't want, people to accuse him of sucking a dick,
Yeah.
and so that's the thing is the people who say that a cigar is just a cigar are proving me right.
Yeah.
And
I
and even if the author,
Well, that's the thing, right? It's the death of the author idea, right?
yes,
You
absolutely.
the author's intention is not important once the work is published.
Yeah,
It's the people's interpretation. And it doesn't
totally.
matter
And the
whether I
author
in
has intentions that
Sure,
go,
but if I had all these intentions and no one ever picks up on my intentions, but they find all these other things in it, then that's what it is because
yes,
that's what
absolutely.
everyone's finding, and it doesn't matter what I wanted to be said,
And
right?
also you come from a world that you come from,
Yep.
and that world is going to end up in your writing, whether you
Yep.
choose to have it there or not. And the same goes for me. So there are thematic things in my, oh my God, my last book, Wrong Side of a Working Man. I, we were talking about editors earlier. It's so good to work with a good editor.
Yeah.
She read my book and she went, why haven't you talked more about um like the why haven't you explored the theme of this book more? And I was like,
What theme?
what are you talking about? And she was like, oh, the theme is suffering from chronic pain. And I was like, no, it's not. It's a modern retelling of the 12 Labors of Hercules taking place on the gritty streets of Los Angeles. And she was like, no, those are the curtains. The curtain rod is chronic pain. And I was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
you're right. And then I was like, oh, I'm 3 months away from publishing this book. And then she gave me that and I was like, oh, I guess I'm a little more than 3 months away from publishing this book, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and so I think, I mean, I'm only 6 chapters in, but I think the same thing is going to happen here. I mean, we're, we're, and also, I don't know you know, you've broken this up into parts. I've
Hmm.
started in part one. I
Hmm.
don't know if I don't know if Malcolm is even going to be the main character of part two or three, but I
He's
feel
not the
like,
main character of part two for sure. In fact, I don't. He's not even in part two.
oh, okay.
Um, he's definitely back to being in part three. Part three jumps POV a lot. So part one is almost entirely. I think part one is entirely Malcolm's point of view. Part two is entirely someone else's point of view, and then part three jumps between people's point of view until the conclusion.
Well, then, like digging into multiple points of view. And you were talking about fleshing out, fully fleshing out your characters,
Hmm.
um, and which is something I love. I mean, that's like everybody is the main character of their own
Yep.
story, and
It's so
and
important, and people do not that. I feel like that is the number one piece of advice that people forget to include is like your villains think that they're doing the right thing.
yes,
They
yes, and that's one thing I zeroed in on in chapter six is I was meeting I'm sorry the names, but Mika and Don,
Mhm.
um and they even having even forgetting chapters 1 through 5 because they are in chapter 3, I think.
Yeah.
In any case, we've already met them. But even if you ignore that, we're, or even if you don't, you know what? Because when we meet them, this is true for those chapters as well. I'm not going to keep trying to convince you to cut the first 5 chapters.
Well, it's published.
But
Nothing's going to happen.
no,
Like
I
this
know,
is
but that was a joke. But those characters that we're meeting, and the cop, and obviously his wife, and it's like we're everybody has an inner life. Even
Yep.
if we're not hearing their thoughts, we're experiencing their inner life through the eyes of someone else.
Hmm.
But still, we can see that it's there. We know that when the door closes and he leaves, they're still in there,
Yep.
and I dig that. I really do.
Yeah. It's super important to me in all of my stories that whoever the villain is, I try not to use terms like villain and bad guy. I'll talk about the protagonist and the antagonist because the antagonist is the person who's driving the story, right?
Hmm.
The protagonist exists and the antagonist is the person who's causing the story.
Right.
Um, and but the antagonist doesn't think that they're bad. None of them are sitting there twirling their mustache going, "I'm going to take over the tri-state area."
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
they're like I need to fix this thing in the world and this is how I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
And I recognize that it's not perfect or it's not the platonic ideal of good or whatever, but this is the only way I have to fix this thing in the world. And it's causing problems. And then the protagonist is pushing back against the problems that the antagonist is causing. But none of them are sitting there saying, I'm fucking bad. I'm the bad guy.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you have a theater background because I don't know, were you an actor, or are you an actor?
Um, I tried acting for like a second when I was in my like teens and 20s. But
So in high
no, I
school though, or
high school, college kind of stuff. But I have worked in theater my entire career, whether it be like artistic theater or corporate theater. Um, I do technical stuff, so I'm a production manager and
okay,
a lighting person and audio person and all that stuff.
cool. Well, the reason I ask is because what you're describing is the only way that you can effectively play a villain.
Yes, yes.
And otherwise it's you know it's
You're flat. You're shallow.
yeah.
You have no depth.
Yeah. And it's what makes the best villains that we can point to
Hmm.
from literary history so
Even
compelling.
even if you go back to like the worst of the worst, like look at Hannibal Lecter. Like Hannibal Lecter
Yeah.
is able to convince you, the watcher, that there was a reason why he killed those people. They were rude. They were, whatever, and
Yeah.
they deserved what they got
Yeah.
in his eyes because, like, eh, and that is what makes a character interesting. Nobody wants a character that is evil for evil's sake. That's why I find like and I'm too old to have ever been interested in Harry Potter, but like that's when I watch Harry Potter with my kids or anything or read it, that's what makes it so like unappealing to me is like Voldemort is just evil for evil's sake. Like there's no compelling reason for his evil other than like we need an evil character, you
Right. And
know?
then that also, I had the same experience. My experience with Harry Potter happened with my stepkids, and the oldest was on exactly the same track in terms of the when the books were dropping as those kids. He was in the
Mhm.
same grade and everything, and then as the next book would drop, they were progressing at the same rate as him. And so I was experiencing these books along with him, and oh my god, they were so um boring, because when you have a villain like that, there's only one way for it all to play out. There's
Yeah.
only one way to fight him. There's only one way. There's only one thing that he wants. There's only one thing that you want. And so it was just like, oh, so what? It was a big, and I feel like for me, like for what you're talking about, I think the villain, if we're going to use that word, is a concept. You know, it's like what is the concept that forces the hands of these people,
Hmm.
and the antagonist and the protagonist are both subject to this whatever the outside, conceptual, like maybe universal or fundamental force is that they
Hmm.
are combating. And one side or the other is gonna their method of combating that force is going to win.
It's like even if you go back to Star Wars, right? And George Lucas, like he had like the biggest heart on for the hero's journey any author has ever had.
Yeah.
Um, but even if you look at that, like, okay, in the original Star Wars, fine, you've got like Darth Vader's the bad guy, right? But not really, right? Darth Vader's in like two or three scenes. Like he's not really the bad guy. The bad guy is the Empire, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so there's enough dialogue in the movie to suggest that the Empire thinks what they're doing is positive, like they're trying to instill peace and control,
Yeah.
everything that you're like, okay, well, they're the bad guys, but they're doing it for whatever. And then you get to Empire and it's like, okay, now we can't keep doing this. And clearly the bad guy is Darth Vader and everyone likes Darth Vader. And so we got to make him the bad guy. So we can't just have him be evil. So what do
Right.
we do? What do we do? We say, "Oh, all along I intended it for it to be that Darth Vader
Yeah.
was Luke's father." And it's like, "Oh my God, now we've got a villain with depth, right?
Yeah.
We retroactively add depth to the villain to make
Exactly.
them interesting and compelling and
Y-
important."
You're so right. You are so right. I mean, the I saw, I saw Star Wars when it came out. There was no A New Hope or anything.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
I saw it on opening day.
I saw it in my mom's tummy. I
Oh,
was
okay.
I, I was born in 1977. So literally my mom went and saw Star Wars just like shortly before I was born. And
Okay.
I was in the theater for Star Wars.
All right. Yeah. And so at the time, um, I mean, obviously it was left over for a sequel, the way Darth Vader survives the
Yeah.
explosion. But that's true of every, I was going to say every good, but I'm going to take that modifier off of there. Every World War II movie is the same as that.
Yep.
Unless the movie actually ends with the end of the war, which none of them do.
No.
And so uh to have in the original Star Wars the villain be this concept, which by the end of the story has been brought to its knees, but you can never defeat a concept,
Right.
and so if they never expanded the Star Wars universe into all of these movies and books and comics and stuff like that, it would still be a a great story, because it's about fighting against this concept as best you can,
Mhm.
and I think that's what's sort of like universally compelling, because we can all relate to that.
Yep.
We don't all have like in well, I think it's a big complaint of today's Star Wars is that, like, why do all the main characters of our side projects have to somehow be involved in the main thread of the Star War? You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
why can't we just have the Mandalorian and little baby Yoda go off on their adventures and never meet any? I mean, it's you this one planet that we live on, there are literally billions of people that you will never meet, and
Yeah.
they live in an entire galaxy.
So that's
you know
that's where people like that was the problem with like both the prequels and the sequels. And as a person who just like grew up on uh it's so funny, right? I grew up on just the Star Wars. Like I said, I was born in 1977. So I didn't see the original Star Wars in the theater. I was in my mom's tummy, right? But I did, and I remember seeing Empire in the theaters, and I remember seeing Jedi in the theaters, right? And then that was it until I was a adult.
Yeah.
Like like that was it. Um and and that's why like and I didn't know it at the time. And I think a lot of people still don't know how to put their finger on it, right? Is this idea that like the first ones, it was like episode one is about the villain is an idea, not a person, right?
Yeah.
Even though you've got Darth Vader, it's really the idea. And then episode, two, you've got or whatever Empire, you've got like, oh, well, Darth Vader's popular. We're going to make him the villain, and we're going to add in retroactively some depth to him to make it interesting. And Jedi, you're going to have the resolution of that and the redemption of that. And
Right.
George Lucas can say that he intended it all day long, and I call bullshit on it every day of the week. But it
I'm
doesn't
so glad
matter.
that we agree on this, because
It,
otherwise I'm shutting off my mic.
yeah, no.
You
And
know?
and I call bullshit on it, but it doesn't matter because it's still like a perfect trilogy. But that's why the as an adult, like looking at the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy, they fall so flat because they don't understand what was going on. And
Right.
so they're trying to just make it about characters instead of ideas.
I'm
And
gonna lean into the mic here for a
yeah,
minute and look it right into the camera and say that there are people right now who are watching who think that this is a couple of nerds ranting about Star Wars, but
this is about writing.
we are talking about storytelling. This is
Yeah,
fundamental
yeah,
stuff right here. And I really appreciate that we veered off in this direction, but we're still talking about the same
yeah.
thing. It's what we were talking about with Forrest Gump and
Pulp
with
Fiction.
Pulp Fiction
Yeah,
and with chapter 6 and
yeah.
chapters 1 through 5. I mean, this is all about taking this most ancient, prehistoric, fundamental human instinct, which is storytelling,
Yeah.
and sharing those stories with the people who aren't storytellers.
Yeah.
And people who aren't storytellers often don't understand
They
what
don't know why they like it. They just know that it speaks to them.
yeah, and they don't know like what we're talking about right now. These are the same people that not all of them, not all people who aren't storytellers, but the fact that we can have a conversation about the curtains being blue or not being blue, or whether or not it's important, like you said, they don't know why it's important to them. And those are things that are important to us as storytellers. Otherwise we can't do our job.
Yeah.
And I really, and this is, I mean, I'm going to get on a hugely meta level here. I don't know if meta is the right word. Maybe cosmic is a better level word, but I think that is what separates us as humans from the rest of the animal world. It's not tool making. It's not war making. It's not, it's not walking upright, or, or bonding for life or not, or
It's
whatever. It's none of
passing
those things.
ideas and
Yeah.
concepts through story.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And so and so that's why you and I can have this conversation that can, we can continue. And then as we're talking about Star Wars, we could go like, oh, well, what about, 2001 A Space Odyssey, or whatever, I mean, it's like we can move on to
Oh
these
man,
stories
we're gonna have episodes about Arthur C. Clarke. We're gonna have episodes about Isaac Asimov.
right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, I yeah, this is very been a very deep and interesting conversation about the creative process, and I love it. Like this is why I wanted to do this. I said it when I was inviting guests. Like this is not about like talking about Malcolm Karma in an attempt to promote it or anything. It's been out for long enough that people have either decided to read it or not. And if they're listening to this so that they can hear the book without, paying for it, then great. I have no problem with that. Um, but I wanted the conversation to be about the idea of storytelling. And that's why I didn't want to, that's why I was so clear. It was like, I don't want people to come on and talk about what they liked. I want people to come on and talk about craft, and
Yeah.
what they liked, but also what didn't work in terms of craft, because the conversation ultimately is about storytelling, and it's about communicating ideas. And as much as I say like that, um, my books aren't deep, there is a thematic thing that runs through all my books, and that is this idea of power corrupts, and
Mm.
that this idea that um, that you cannot trust where power is going to go, because it always has the best intentions, and then at some point, and like you said, we're seeing it play out in the real world right now,
Yeah.
this idea of like, oh, I've got the best intentions, I'm here to help you, I'm here to save you, and to do that I'm going to destroy you.
Yeah.
And that is what ultimately the theme of all of my books are about, um, unintentionally perhaps, but it is definitely there, um, and it is a reflection of the world that we live in.
Yeah, I think that it's always it's the theme that you're talking about is an important one, and to explore and to expose. And it's something that I have struggled with in the times that we're living in now, because I'm trying to there are obvious things that we can do in a political situation, in a troubled political situation, that are the things that people can do. You can march and you can phone bank, and those things are this on the same list for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then in what we do, I feel that it is at least incumbent upon me, and I'm not going to tell anybody else what to do, but it's incumbent upon me to rise to this moment in my storytelling. And that's part of the reason, like that I took on this punk rock um ethos,
Mm-hmm.
uh, 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 baldly in my storytelling, as opposed to having it be in the background, because it gives me an opportunity to come straight out and talk about the society that we live in. And fun, like on like my goal as a writer is always to be entertaining. That's like my
Yeah,
first goal.
it should
and
be.
and if I wanted to, I could write nonfiction treatises on politics
Yeah,
and stuff like that, and but I wouldn't want to read that.
yeah.
So there's stuff like that that I should be reading right now that I'm like, oh my God. But if I can write something that is entertaining, that can also deliver what you're talking about, or what hopefully my book is talking about, and moving forward to actually identify, like I have a list, like you were talking about your list of books that's coming up to write. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I also have a list that my main character's name is Nick Paris, and I have, I think, four Nick Paris stories lined up, um, with more or less detail in their notes and outlines, but every one of them has a particular social or political um, issue that is running in the background. So one of them, it might be healthcare, and one of them, it might be the environment, and one of them, it might be, um, I'm trying to think of, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying. is that I always want my entertaining, gritty, fun to read, hard boiled punk rock detective stories with you kicking down doors
Hmm.
and driving through the city. But it's important to me that I utilize the arrows in my quiver to make the impact that I can make
Hmm.
as an artist.
Sure. Yeah, I think, and there's a lot of conversation going on about this right now, in the spaces in the communities, um, and and I think that you've got like a really good attitude towards that in terms of like, what you feel like you have to do, and I certainly try to speak out, and I certainly include these thematic ideas of like uh power, corruption, and like really I think the thing that I'm trying to speak out against in my books when I really like dive deep, and this is kind of right now, like I was today years old, realizing was this idea of the ends justify the means kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that I'm trying to speak against that a little bit in some of my writing. Um, uh, and I think that you and I are on the same page in that. I think that the problem that we're running into in the community and in society at large is that there's this idea that everybody that writes has an obligation to be talking about these things, and everybody that reads has an obligation to be reading in such a way that they are, uh, representing their values and their morals and their political beliefs in their reading,
Yeah.
and that everything you do, from the coffee you buy in the morning or brew in your kitchen in the morning, to the book that you read, before bed, to everything, that everything you do is a statement. And if we can find something that you do in your day that doesn't align with our statement, then God damn it, we're gonna burn you at the stake and tell you that you're a traitor to the cause
Yeah.
because we found something that you did that doesn't align with like what you say your values are.
Yeah.
And I'm exhausted by
Me
it.
too. I got invited to be a guest on another podcast. And first of all, I'm an old man, right? I'm going to be 57 at the end of this month. And so I've been around the block. And I was going to be a guest on this podcast, and this was sort of friend of a friend. Like they weren't familiar with my
Hmm.
TikTok presence, and
Hmm.
they hadn't read my book yet. They sent me a questionnaire that included things like, how many trans authors did you read in the last year, and what did and how many how many creators from Gaza do you follow? And there was this long list of things. And I was like, okay, here's how I'm going to answer your questions. I've been doing this a long time, and I don't keep a mathematical rubric
Yeah.
because I am too old. I have and so I'm gonna share my TikTok link with you, and you can see where I break out of promoting my book and actually talk about politics. And I'm going to tell you what my last book was about. I'm going to tell you what this book was about,
Yeah.
and I'm going to ask you, kid, how many Nazis have you punched?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like, and it's like we can't
You can't do
all
this.
be on
Yeah.
this how everybody's challenging
Yeah.
everybody. The other side isn't doing that, and
Well, and that's the problem, is the other side is just like, the other side understands the idea that like that this isn't a marriage, it's a bus schedule.
Yes, yes.
And
That's
and and it's not about finding the perfect person or the perfect thing that meets every one of your check marks and you're going to live with it forever. It's about what is going to get you the closest to what you're trying to get to. And and that's why we keep fucking failing.
yeah. I'm gonna hit you with two foundational quotes that are wildly misunderstood.
Hmm.
The first is from Buddhism, which is that life is pain. And on the face of it, people hear that and they're like, oof, that sucks. But what it actually means is once you understand that there is suffering in this life, you can move on from there.
Yep.
You don't have to be paralyzed by that concept.
Yeah.
And the other is there is no ethical consumption under capitalism.
I am literally like this is something that I am drilling into my children, like, and they're little, and and you can already like ask my like 9-year-old, and he'll be like, "Yeah, Dad already told us there's no ethical consumption under capitalism."
Right. But what that means is
Yeah.
that you can get something from Amazon if you need to.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying that you should throw your hat towards Jeff Bezos and we need to be on his side. But if you need, you got to do the things you got to do to
I
survive.
I I literally like we so there's two things like directly correlated to that that I've talked about recently. One is like we try not to order from Amazon at all, as much as possible since January-ish. And our dryer broke at one point, and we had to be able to do laundry. And the only thing that was wrong with the dryer was it needed a belt to
Uh,
to turn the thing. And I went to 5 different hardware stores, and they're like, we don't carry them in store. Like,
yeah,
and I'm like, can I order them? And they're like, just get it from Amazon. And every like I went to stores and they were like, just
yeah,
get it from Amazon. Ultimately, the only way I was going to be able to fix my dryer, I could either buy a new dryer for $700, or I
right,
could order a $30 belt from Amazon. And so we ended up doing that.
yeah,
The other thing was that we uh when the whole DEI thing started going down, right? We started boycotting all the places. Target, McDonald's,
yeah,
like all the places. And one of the places that we started boycotting that really hurt us was Aldi.
mm,
Now, Aldi never made like a big press conference or statement or anything, but they just kind of quietly removed all the DEI from their public facing side of their website.
yeah,
And it was like, fuck you. And so we stopped shopping at Aldi for 7 months until it was like we our food budget for our house went from $900 a month to $1,300 a month
yeah. What are you
in
gonna?
like 7 months. Like just and it
Yeah,
was like I cannot afford, like, you want to know what the upper limits of my morals are, of my ethics are? The limits of my ethics are I can't feed my family.
yeah, yeah,
And so we decided to shop at Aldi again. And and like we're not happy about it. It doesn't make us feel, we're not like thank God, but I also don't not sleep at night.
right. Because
Be-
you gotta survive. I mean,
yeah.
that's yeah. And so it's like obviously I did not end up on this podcast where they sent me the questionnaire. But I did reach out to my friend who set me up with them and be like, "Hey, I got to let you know what your friends are doing because this is going to hurt them in the long run." I mean, it was like I didn't let her know like I was complaining to her, but I was like, this is not a sustainable. If
Yeah.
this is serious, if they're serious about affecting change,
Yeah.
They're going to fail
Yeah.
if
They're
this
going to
is
actually turn allies against them.
yeah.
Because if you are saying I'm going to provide a purity test on every issue that is important to me and everything that I think, and if you don't 100% align with me on every single issue, then I'm going to cancel you or like, whatever. You want to know what the alt-right pipeline is? That's it.
That's
It's
it. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
telling you that no matter what you do, you're not good enough because I will find the P under the stack of mattresses that is your weakness that makes me be able to say you are bad. And then you're gonna make people go, you know what? Fuck it. Like, forget it. Like,
Yeah.
I give up on the whole fight because I
Well,
can't possibly live up to everything that everybody wants.
I'm Gen X,
Me too.
and there's a lot of discourse obviously about Gen X and what,
Hmm.
what Gen X is like and stuff like that. But what you're talking about, we're a very small generation, and and I would guess probably 50-50 in the divide politically. Um
Hmm.
and but both sides of the Gen X, whichever way we fall, have done since the 90s what you're describing.
Yep.
And it's why the especially younger generations talk about how like, oh, Gen X, didn't do this, or this is Gen X's
Yep.
fault. And we're like, you know what? We were excluded from everything to the point where we were just like, you know what? Fuck you. We're,
Yep.
we're out. We're out.
And then we started
We were
doing it.
promised that we would be dead by this time
Yep.
in history anyway, and we were ignored when we tried to rock the vote.
Yep.
So
But then we started doing it to each other. I think actually we're probably the ones that started it with this idea of like, oh, you're a sellout. Oh, you decided to go make money and like have a family, you're a sellout. Oh,
right,
you decided to like, oh, you were making, records and selling them, off the back of your two-wheel bicycle, your Schwinn bicycle, and then someone offered you a record label and you took it, you're a sellout. Oh, you decided to go to Hollywood and take a three picture deal, you're a sellout.
right,
And it's like, oh, anytime you're doing something to better yourself and your own personal circumstances, you're a
yeah,
sellout. And that was the original like cancel culture, was like this idea of being a sellout. And and I think that like I think that I mean that started there, and now it's just like we've spread it so thin that it's like there's no way not to, because people will say like, oh, you're everything's fine, but the coffee you buy comes from a colony in South America where they don't,
right.
it's like, oh my God. Like,
Well, I can't. I'm trying to think of what product it was or something, but it's like I don't have the time.
to
And when I
Google
say time,
everything.
to yeah, and I don't have the resources to, it's like, okay, I'm trying to market my book. I don't have time to track all this stuff down. I don't have the money to
Sometimes I
spend the
just need a tube
time
of
to,
toothpaste and I
yeah,
cannot stand there in the aisle with my phone. And
yeah,
and then you've got people going, "Oh, it's so hard. You've got a phone in your pocket. Just Google it." It's like, yeah, but I'm picking up 100 things. You want me to Google everything
right,
and then like, and if it's not here, then I have to go somewhere else. Like, stop it. Fuck you. You've got too much time.
right, right, yeah. Yeah, and then also like I think I'm already you may and you too. I mean we're already indie
Yeah.
artists. I
Yeah.
mean that already we've chosen a path that's outside of the system. So there's got to be a certain amount of, I don't know if latitude is the right word, but it's like that's
Grace.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
let's just give each other a little bit of grace.
yeah.
Let's not assume the worst intentions.
Well, okay, so my first book that I self-published, um, I discovered that indie bookstores, now the model has changed.
Mhm.
It's not all the same behind the curtain as it used to be. But at the time, are you still there? Oh, I
Yeah,
lost
I
you.
just turned off the camera.
Oh, okay. I, that was your cough button.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, I discovered that because I published my paperback through KDP, Amazon, and even though I made the book available for, I think they call it worldwide distribution or whatever,
Mhm.
so that means that bookstores can buy your book wholesale.
Theoretically,
And but they won't.
they
They
won't.
will not buy
No.
it if you published on Amazon.
Yep.
Publishing on Amazon is free. Publishing from the indie book publisher that they would buy,
Ingram, yeah.
Ingram, at the time, just to walk in the door at Ingram was, I think it was $150. And not only that, but it was $150 every time you upload something. So
Right.
if you upload your book and then they come back and they say, "Oh, there are," because they're not reading it for artistic quality,
Mhm.
but there's structural there's
If
some
there's
kind of
formatting
technical thing.
issues or something,
You
yeah.
you gotta you gotta fix the formatting. It's another $150 to fix it.
I don't think it was that much, but
It
yes, it
well,
was.
maybe it was 50 on
Yeah,
the second round. But anyway, I mean, because this is back,
yeah, I know.
you know, and it was like, so these indie bookstores are protecting their indie status, but what they're doing is that they're costing indie authors.
But also, the indie bookstores still won't order your books from Ingram, even if they're on Ingram, because they, it, without, unless, I mean, first of all, they pretty much won't, unless you have some like pull specifically. So like
Right.
I was able to get like books, the bookstore like in the town I grew up in to order two copies to put on
Right.
the shelf and stuff. Um, but even the Barnes and Noble that's in the town I live in now wouldn't order it
No,
to
no,
put on
yeah,
the store.
absolutely. No,
Um,
but I'm
but
specifically talking about like indie
yeah,
bookstores should be
but
buying indie authors.
but
Like,
and they still won't buy it unless you have returns enabled. And
right.
if you get and what people don't understand is that the bookstore buys your books at a 55% discount, right? So say your book is $15, right? They get it for like $6, right? So they're buying your book for $6 even though it sells for 15, right? So they buy it for 6. If they decide, okay, this has been on the shelf for a couple months, it hasn't sold, they return it for $15
And then you owe them
and
that money.
you owe the difference back to Ingram. So
Yeah.
you actually are paying half the 55% of the cost of the book
Yeah.
to have it be returned to Ingram.
Right.
And that's people like they're like, "Oh, I did such a great marketing thing and I got it and all these bookstores ordered all these copies and there's hundreds of copies that are being ordered by bookstores." And then
Yeah.
3 months later, they have hundreds of copies being returned. And they're like, how do I owe hundreds and
Yeah.
thousands of
Because nobody
dollars?
sells that many books.
Right.
And yeah, and but it's what's so frustrating is then you get somebody who's outside of that, maybe who's just a reader, for
Hmm.
instance, who will be well, they'll be like, oh well, I would never buy your book from Amazon. Oh, you published on Amazon? I'm not buying your book. And it's like, who's gonna shed a tear about that? Jeff Bezos. That he's like really, really sad that you're not buying my $16 book.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, so it's like, yeah, we need to be aware of, we need to be aware that our coffee and our chocolate is ethically grown if we can be. But we also need to be aware that there are people, that we are people as a society in this country trapped inside this system. And
Yep.
we have to operate from inside the system that we're trapped in.
Yep.
And we can work to change the system, but until it's changed, like, okay, World War II, the Maquis, right? The French underground, blowing up trains. You know how they got to the train trestle bridge that they were going to blow up? They took the train. I mean, the train was being run by the Nazi occupiers, and they bought a fucking ticket and they took the train.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm all for dismantling capitalism, right? Like, we all, like, most of us artists are for dismantling capitalism, but until we do, we're still living in it. And if we want to have a roof over our head and feed our families, then, when you're saying to people, well, just completely boycott Amazon, well, most indie authors sell 90% of their books through Amazon. So when you're like, oh, I'm not going to buy it on Kindle, I'm just going to pirate it or whatever, like,
Yeah.
you're only hurting the independent artists that you think you want to support. And frankly, like I am trying to boycott Amazon as much as possible too, but my goal is not to shut down Amazon, right? Because A, it does work for me for selling books. B, it employs thousands of people.
Right. Yeah.
All we want is for these big companies to treat their employees with dignity and pay them a living wage. Like, that is what the boycotts are about. It's
Yeah.
not about like, let's like put the company out of business. Do I think that we should get rid of billionaires? Absolutely. Like, I think that you should be able to earn up and have wealth up to 999,999,999 dollars, and as soon as you have $1 billion, every dollar is taxed at 100%, because nobody needs that much money, right?
Yeah.
You just don't. And if you say, well, then, billionaires won't, those people won't work anymore. Bullshit. They don't need the money now. They're
Yeah.
still working. Like, it for them, it's a status thing. It's a power thing. And that's a
Yeah.
different thing to try to fight. But in terms of, like, unless we're going to immediately and completely dismantle capitalism, then we have to, like, live in it. And while we're living in it, we have to understand that even the companies that we don't like are employing people that we do.
Right. Right. So you can shoplift from them without hurting the people who are working there.
Yes.
Or you could go and buy our books.
Yes.
I mean,
On Kindle, where they don't make, like, where they give us 65%, so we're making, so the author is making the majority of the money.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sort of like the Red Cross is an entrenched philanthropical charitable organization.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really want to help people during a disaster, you want to be giving the money to the small organizations that exist in the place
Mm-hmm.
that the disaster happened.
Yep.
And the way, but you need somebody like the Red Cross in order to access those smaller
Mm-hmm.
individuals.
Yep.
And that's like what Amazon is. It's like, okay, you could boycott the Red Cross, or you could find ways to utilize it to actually help, you know, uh, people on the ground, or you could boycott Amazon, or you could find a way to utilize it to help indie authors or indie artists or whatever, whatever stripe. The what was there was that was leading me to I thought of something that was absolutely brilliant that I was about to say, but I can't remember it. So
Hold on. Well, just hold on. Ready? Cut. That was brilliant. I agree with you 100%. um,
yes, yeah,
sorry, the audio must have dropped out there for a second, but that was amazing. Um, no, here's what it comes down to. Wow, we have gotten off of writing. We really dove into writing there and storytelling and craft, and now we're off on the tangent. But I'm
we
okay
are. But
with that.
everything is
It's
writing,
it's everything is. Here's the thing, right? I feel like people want to boycott the billionaires, like Bezos and hurt Amazon and stuff like that.
right?
Those people, while not good, because if they were good, they would say, "Oh my God, I have all this money. Let me just like solve homelessness overnight by, buying everyone a home with all my money."
Right.
Like, but they're still just people playing in the sandbox of capitalism. Okay. If you want to be upset, rather than going and saying, I'm going to boycott the billionaires, say, I'm going to kick out all the elected people, because the elected people can go in and say, you have to pay your taxes. And you have to pay, they're the ones that can say you're not allowed to have 17, 20, 70, $100 billion. And so we're going to tax all of that and take it and use it to help people out. Instead
Right.
of saying to the individual person, well, damn it, why don't you just go and help people out? Go to the people that can do something about it and say, if you don't make them help people out, then you don't have a job anymore. That's where you affect change. You don't sit there and wring your hands and whine and say, I'm not going to shop. You say, you people that can actually do something, do something.
And I think that yes, absolutely 100%. And to kind of bring it back around to what you and I actually do, to the storytelling and the writing and being an indie artist, and you and I know each other because of TikTok.
Yeah.
And TikTok is now probably going to end up being owned by right wing billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the same people who bring us Fox News and all that garbage.
Yep.
And so there are a lot of people who are saying they're leaving TikTok, or that we should all be leaving TikTok, and TikTok is dead now. And I understand that impulse, but alternatively, we can continue to utilize their platform to have these conversations. And I realize we're not on TikTok right now, but this kind of discourse happens
Yep.
on TikTok every day,
Yep.
and we can continue to utilize their shit against them.
Yep.
And so my outsider DIY punk rock hardboiled detective and your outsider Chicago, maybe not Chicago hitman exist in a world where Amazon exists.
Mm-hmm.
And they're and the reason we know about uh Malcolm Karma and Nick Paris is because we refuse to be silenced.
Yeah.
And if we all leave all the platforms that all the billionaires own, then we're silencing ourselves.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
those avenues to conversation have always been controlled by the people at the top, whether it's billionaires or or the clergy or the
Right.
kings or whatever. And so
And all
yeah,
you're doing is handing over the conversation to the people that you want, that are awful, right? And so that the
yeah,
new people that don't have a bent, that are trying to discover the world, that come on to TikTok or any of these social media platforms and say, "Oh, I'm a, ingenue that doesn't know about the world and I'm trying to find, community." and then the only community that's there is that community, and they're like, I guess this is how the world is.
Right.
Like, you have to have a presence so that there's an alternative to that, um for people who are looking for community. And that is, again, like the alt-right pipeline, right? It's people who are lonely and helpless and vulnerable, that are looking for community and support. And when that community steps up and says, we'll take you in, let me
Yeah.
tell you what your problems. I mean, this is literally what Mein Kampf was, right? It was like, let me tell you why your problems are your problems. Let me tell you why things are going so badly for you. It's
Yeah.
because of these people. And that is what is going on now. Let me tell you why you can't get a girlfriend. Let me tell you why you can't get laid. Let me tell
Yeah.
you why you lost your job. Let me tell you why grocery prices are so high. It's because of these people. It's literally the same thing. It's the exact same playbook. It's happening exactly the same again. And and the problem is, the people that try to speak against it go, you know what? Fuck you. I'm stepping, like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. So I'm just going to go away. And then when the people step up, they go, what are the voices? Oh, I
Right.
guess these are the voices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my voice is best utilized as an author. I mean, I
Yeah.
obviously I can sit in front of the camera on TikTok and talk political discourse or break down a book like Dracula and expose what I am interpreting to be the socio-political and psychosexual stuff that applies to the world we live in today. And I think that that is useful, but that's not my that's not the sharpest arrow in my quiver, right? I mean, it's like I am a writer
Yeah.
fundamentally, and so that's what I have to offer, and so that's where I will continue to march down that road. That's my those are my marching orders.
Yeah. Well, we've been going for about 2 hours, so I'm gonna, for the sake of both our times, kind of like start steering us towards a close.
Yeah.
Um, I think that this has certainly been the longest conversation we've had on this show, and the
Did we
most.
cover chapter 6 yet?
Oh, we should go back and talk about Malcolm Karma. Um, this has been but I think we've talked a lot about kind of what I wanted to get at in terms of craft and storytelling, and then of course the implications of that. Before we sign off, I want to say two things. One is, this has been so much fun. I want to do this again with you. I would love to do like a live on TikTok or something where we can just like hang out and talk about just anything for as long as we want.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Justin and I, we've chatted in DMs and such on TikTok, but this is the first time we've ever spoken. So this
Yeah.
is this has been really, like, I feel like I found like a kindred spirit and a kismet here, and it's
Yeah.
wonderful. I'd love to have another conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this again.
The other thing is that one of the things I've been talking about with some of the people, that it wasn't even my idea. The guests have brought this up, is this idea of like, when we get to the end of the book in terms of
Ah,
the podcast, like having a big, like like 15-20 person Zoom call uh at the end, after everyone's read the whole book,
yeah.
because like I said at the beginning, most of the people only read up to the chapter that they were going to read because they
Yeah.
didn't want to like go forward and spoil it, but they're all like, oh, but now I'm going to finish it. To come back at the end and be like, oh, I was talking about chapter 5 or 6 or 4 or 9, and now that I've read the whole thing, oh my God, it's so much different than I thought, or I did it went in a way I didn't, and having a big conversation at the end. So I just want to like put that out to you, that like sometime in, like, probably not till like January or something like that, but having another like big call with everybody to just kind of talk about the book as a whole.
I think that's a great idea. And then everybody in their little Zoom window, it would like my Zoom window would say Justin DiPego, chapter 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on. This has been so much fun. I've had the best time. I've had a shitty week, and this has been like a really good way to like kind of wrap up a shitty week. So I
Well, I'm sorry you had a
appreciate that.
shitty week, and I'm happy to be a part of bringing it up to a new
Yeah.
level.
So real quick, go ahead and plug your stuff again. And
Okay, so the book is, are we in focus there?
yeah,
Yes, Knuckle Sandwich. It is a LA Gothic hard-boiled punk rock mystery thriller. It's about a punk rock private eye on the hunt for a kidnapped goth girl.
that's awesome. Um, and we will have a link for purchase in the show notes of this episode. Justin, just make sure you send that over to me when we're done.
I will.
And where can people follow you, find you online?
I'm most active on TikTok, and my TikTok handle, obviously, you can find me there by my name, Justin DiPego. My TikTok handle is actually uh, DiPego Now, which is the name of my company.
Okay.
The same is true on Instagram. I'm Justin DePago. The same on Blue Sky and Threads, but I'm less active in those places.
Yeah.
And so that's where you can find me.
Great. Well, thank you, Justin, for joining us. Thank you, everyone who listened, for listening to Chapter 6 of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, the audiobook podcast. And we will catch you in 2 weeks with the next episode. And go and follow Justin everywhere. Thank you, Justin, so much.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay.
Bye.